Here's my Kawasaki Versys X 300, and I've got a problem. So I designed these a long time ago. I just kind of whipped them together out of some scrap that I have, and they were for the lug. I've got some Cortec luggage bags, and they hang down, and I didn't like how, you know, by default they curved in. I didn't like the look of it, and so I built these to kind of shim them back a little bit, you know, to make them look more flush and flat. It's just a piece of 1-inch square tubing that I cut here to put a hole through, and then I just welded a piece of flat bar here to, you know, give it a larger surface area to rest against. But on my moto camping trip that I just came back from, I noticed one of my issues was my my line kept getting, you know, it straps here and it straps up here, and it kind of would like shift forward and get a lot of slack in the lines, and I realized it was because it was bending this. So once you actually have some weight in it, you can see it you know, it's got it's not that hard to bend. So this is a 14 gauge 1-inch square tubing. It's not very heavy duty, and again, I built it as a proof of concept. So I want to rebuild this, but this time what I should have done from the get-go was I'm going to cut a 45-degree angle here instead of, I just used an angle grinder to kind of etch this out and then drill the hole for that bolt. I'm going to use a chop saw so I can cut it at a you know, pretty close to a 45-degree angle. So that should really strengthen this joint to keep it from bending in. But not only am I going to do that, I'm actually going to build, this is steel, I'm going to build it out of aluminum. I've never messed with aluminum before. I've seen videos and stuff on aluminum brazing. This seems like a perfect application for aluminum brazing because it's not really got to be that strong or critical. I can braze around the outside. This is going to be a first for me. I'm used to steel, I'm used to welding. I'm not used to aluminum, but it's lightweight. Unfortunately, the price of all this stuff is really high right now. This is 2021, March 2021. I bought a 21-foot stick of 11 gauge, so it's heavier duty than this, aluminum 1-inch square tubing, and it was 50 bucks, 49, you know, 95 or something plus tax. That's pretty high. And then the flat bar was another $15 for a 12-foot piece of 2-inch flat bar by 1/8 inch. So I know aluminum's higher than steel generally. I don't know if aluminum prices are really high right now because I just don't have experience buying aluminum. But anyway, I'm gonna, so really, I mean, I've got, you know, I think my total bill after tax was like $72 for those two pieces. It's not, if I was going the cheap route, I'd keep doing steel, but like I said, I want to kind of get some exposure in aluminum. This seems like the perfect project to do it. So I'm gonna get started. as far as I know, in order to braze this, I've never brazed before, so I'm learning, but I bought these Aluma weld rods from Harbor Freight, so I'm going to give those a chance. I think you're supposed to kind of roughen up the area that you're going to braze, then heat it up. You can use propane. I've got a little propane torch I'm going to use, and then you heat the base material. I saw someone online suggest using some ceramic tile, which I had some scrap ceramic tile, to put in your vise so that it doesn't suck the heat. The heat stays in your aluminum, it doesn't transfer to your vise. And then I'm gonna heat the material, and when it's hot enough, that brazing rod should just kind of start to melt, almost like you're welding, but you know, without the arc that generally you use to heat the surface up with. So I'm just kind of eyeballing this. So let's kind of roughen those textures up, or roughen those edges. Use that just to help clamp it in place. While I'm heating this, I've heard that it's better to use MAP gas because it burns a lot hotter, so you can heat your surface up much faster. Propane works, it just takes longer because it's not as hot. I think it was like 700, 20 or something degrees is what this has to get to before this rod will melt. I don't know how long this is going to take, but I've used propane in the past to heat steel to bend it, and I mean, it takes a solid 4 or 5 minutes or something like that probably before it starts to glow, and then you can grab it with a clamp and just kind of start to move it. But I don't have MAP gas, I don't have oxyacetylene, I don't have all that stuff that real shops would have. I've got propane, which works great when you're camping to start fires. I actually got this from the camper. I don't know where my other I have a propane torch that puts out a lot more bigger flame. I don't know where it's at though. I'd have to look for it. Get it really, really hot. Really hot. More really hot. Man, my arm's getting tired of holding this propane tank. Alright, there we go. Woo! Apparently I lost my torch there. I'm going to keep this material hot. It doesn't look bad, but I don't feel like I really got it deep down into that base material. Let me heat it up some more. Seemed like it started out good, but then once my torch died, that doesn't look like it even went. It just kind of looks like it pooled up on the edge there. There we go. Now I'm heating it up. Let's see how that works to reheat it. And maybe see if I can get some more material right here on the edge. Oh yeah, that's a puddle. That's a puddle. Woo. I've never brazed before, but I've welded, and if I welded that, I wouldn't be happy with it. Alright, so I think what I did there, wrong. Well, wrong or right. I was trying something else. I heated the rod, and I got the rod to melt, and you could kind of see how pooled up they looked, like they weren't sinking into the base material. Then I just kept the heat on it, got it real hot, and then went back through and just kind of like messed with it with the rod to kind of push it down. And that seems to have worked. There's still some, you know, down here and down here it looks pretty good. You know, it didn't look like it penetrated as well right there. Well, there you have it. You've got to keep that clamp on it. What I'm learning quickly, those gloves can only handle the heat for so long, then it kind of starts to travel into your hand. That looks pretty good, I think. Like I said, keep your clamps. I'm not going to grab one. Obviously, they're probably burning hot, but I need to let them cool down a little bit. Maybe I can grab a different clamp and pick this up and flip it over and weld that very last side. My rod's getting small enough now that I think I'm going to need to hold it with a pair of pliers. I got it on the end of a pair of pliers now, so I can keep going even though it's getting low. Lovely. Actually, that last one looks perfect. Like, it looks like I've done this before. I did that a lot like if I was MIG welding, except I kind of pushed it into the crack and worked my way back. So there's the old, and here's the new. Aluminum versus steel. They're almost identical as far as size and everything. I debated on getting this thing powder coated, but I decided not to do it just because it is kind of a first attempt kind of thing. So I just used Rust-Oleum. I put 2 coats of Rust-Oleum primer on it and 1 coat of Rust-Oleum hammered black. I really like the look of hammered black. It hides your blemishes and whatnot. Another note is the inside of this is 11 gauge square tubing. It's a little bit thicker on the inside than the old stuff. The head of the bolt didn't fit through the 11 gauge. It probably would have had I used 14 gauge. 11 gauge is real close to 1/8 of an inch, but I end up having to use a carbide burr bit, and I just kind of ate away at the inside of that aluminum. But there you go. That's way stronger because the whole bike is moving now. I think something else I'm going to do too is I'm going to throw some padding, maybe like Velcro or something on here just to keep it from rubbing. The last ones, it would rub on here. You can kind of see some of the paint rubbed off, and then that paint ended up on the saddlebags. In conclusion, the reason I went with aluminum over steel were 2 reasons. 1, I've never used aluminum and I wanted some experience with aluminum brazing. Number 2 is because of weight. So I just want to compare. This is the weight of my steel bracket. It's 0.508. Here's the weight of the aluminum bracket. 0.29. So almost half of the weight. A little more than half the weight. I did use thicker aluminum material, so it may have even been able to be a little lighter. Hopefully you liked this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this.